Have you ever noticed how cute goats are? Seriously, they're like puppies. Whenever you see one nearby, you just want to scoop them up and give them a big cuddle. But guess what? They might actually act like dogs too. There's this super cool study I found in biology letters that says, when goats get stuck or frustrated, they look at us humans for help. Have you ever taken a close look at a goat's eyes? They've got these crazy rectangular pupils. It's mind-blowing. People have been fascinated by them for ages. So, if you're as intrigued by goats as I am, stick around until the end of the video, because we've got even more awesome goat facts coming your way. Over 5,000 years back, in the Miocene period, there was this creature called the capred roaming around the earth. They were ground dwellers, and over time, they evolved into various forms. The capred belongs to the Bovidae family, also known as the cow family. This family includes a bunch of different groups, with the main ones being cows, sheep, and goats. And guess what? Each of these groups has lots of subgroups within them. Fast forward to today, we've got tons of different types of cows, sheep, and goats all around the world. They might have different names and appearances, but they're all part of the same cow family that started with the capred way back when. It's pretty amazing how things have changed over time, isn't it? But unlike cows and sheep, goats have adapted differently depending on where they live. They really dig the highlands, like mountains or places near mountains. And when humans figured out how to bring these mountain-loving goats down to lower ground and tame them, it was a game changer. People quickly realized just how handy goats could be. They could get milk and meat from these animals, which was a big deal. And as time went on, goats started popping up all over the globe and becoming famous worldwide. Let me tell you about a couple of interesting stories. First up, we've got the ancient Egyptian pharaohs. These guys were really fond of goats, so much so that when they passed away, they were buried with some goats to make sure they had plenty to eat in the afterlife. Talk about planning ahead, right? Then there's Abraham Lincoln, the 16th President of the United States. Now, most presidents bring dogs to the White House, but not Lincoln. He actually kept them as pets during his time in the White House. Now, here's where things get a bit spooky. Ever heard of the superstition associating goats with evil? Yeah, it goes way back to ancient Greek times. You see, some people believed that because goats have horns, they must be linked to evil. And this idea still sticks around today, with some folks even thinking of Satan as having goat-like horns. But now, in many cultures like India, Asia, Egypt, and Europe, goats are actually seen as super helpful and adorable animals. Back in 1788, when England took charge of Australia, they noticed certain animals was missing in Australia. So, they came up with a plan to fix it by shipping over various critters, including sheep and goats. These two made quite an impact. When sheep and goats came to Australia, the good weather and abundant meadows caused these animals starting having lots of babies. Their numbers just kept getting bigger and bigger. Actually, sheep became really important in Australia, and the country started selling lots of sheep stuff like meat and wool to other places. Fast forward to today, and the sheep and goat populations in Australia are still booming. It's pretty impressive how these animals went from newcomers to major players in the Australian landscape. The high number of sheep in Australia isn't a big issue, because they're usually used for meat or sent abroad alive. But there's a problem with the large population of goats. They're causing damage to the Australian environment. Lots of goats are left in Australia's natural areas, where they're wrecking pastures. And the problem is getting worse because there aren't enough natural predators like wolves to control their numbers. In the past, people didn't really understand ecosystems well. They brought in lots of different animals to Australia without thinking about what might happen. This lack of planning caused a bunch of problems, like having too many rabbits. The number of rabbits in Australia has gotten really bad, and the ecosystem is having a hard time dealing with them. Plus, there aren't any natural predators around to control the rabbit population. To deal with the problem of too many goats, the Australian government sometimes sends soldiers to cull wild goats. They also use helicopters to target goats and keep their numbers down. It might seem extreme, but it's seen as necessary to stop goats from taking over the whole landscape of Australia. Some folks think bringing wolves to Australia could help control the goat population, but scientists say it's not a good idea. They worry that wolves might end up hunting and eating goats too much, throwing off the balance of the environment. Plus, if we introduce wolves, their own population might grow too much, which could be dangerous for people because wolves sometimes attack humans. Now, let's talk about the fascinating features of goats. One thing that really stands out is their eyes. Instead of round pupils like most animals, goats have rectangular ones. This cool eye shape gives them almost a full 360-degree view of their surroundings. They're really good at keeping an eye on things around them, but they struggle a bit to see above and below. Scientists think this is because goats are more at risk of getting attacked from the sides rather than from above or below. The only real threat from above comes from eagles, especially when they're baby goats. Unlike cows and sheep, goats prefer living in high places and are really good climbers. They develop this skill to stay safe from other animals that might want to eat them. Their hooves are split, which helps them walk on tough ground, and they can even use them to grab onto surfaces like walls when they climb. Plus, goats are amazing jumpers. They can leap up to 1.5 meters high. One funny thing about goats is they love to climb fruit trees to eat the fruit. It just shows how good they are at using their climbing skills to find food. Even though goats and sheep are in the same family, they don't always get along. And when they have babies, which is pretty tough for them, those babies are called geep, a mix of goat and sheep. When goats make noise, they're trying to tell us something. They might be hungry, unhappy, calling for someone, or just having fun. These friendly and playful animals don't make sounds for no reason. Whether they need food, help, or they're just playing, goats use their voices to communicate. Goats are loved all over the world, especially in the West. In fact, the word goat now stands for greatest of all time, showing just how much people love them. But in Australia, where there are too many goats, they're seen as a problem. If there were more people there, they might allow hunting to control the goat population. What do you think? Please share your thoughts.